On January 1st, 2022, the copyright of the beloved children's character Winnie the Pooh finally expired. So Winnie the Pooh was suddenly public domain, but not the Disney version of the character though. The House of Mouse still had its multi-billion-dollar jaws around that one, but instead the original version of the character from the 1926 A.A. Milne novels. If the bear had a shirt on, that's Disney's obsession, but the bear with no shirt was now in public possession. And immediately after this happened, people started making their own Winnie the Pooh related properties. And for some reason, the most famous examples of this are all dark, twisted, edgy teenager versions of the character. Most infamously with a movie called Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey, which was announced in May of 2022, just 4 months after the bear had become public property. It was a slasher movie where Winnie the Pooh and all his little woodland friends were all like mass murderers, because Christopher Robin had abandoned them and it made them go feral or whatever. This movie is not very good. It's panned by critics and by audiences pretty much unilaterally. There's maybe some fun to be had watching it, you know, maybe it has it's so bad it's good vibes, but the movie itself is pretty garbage. But there was also a game announced too, an indie game with the title Winnie's Hole. Winnie's Hole. It's like a strategy game roguelike that's themed around Winnie the Pooh being infected with some parasitic virus, and your goal is to go around infecting a bunch of cute woodland creatures with syphilis or whatever, and you mutate his body over time to make him this grotesque monster. I first saw this game on Twitter and it was getting what you might call a mixed reception. Most people were having the same reaction to this that I had. This game looks cringe. Like, why does every Winnie the Pooh adaptation have to be some dark and twisted take on the character? Why does everyone see this super famous character become public domain and their first thought is to make it edgy? It seems like such a waste of the character and the source material that that character originates from. But what if I told you that it didn't have to be this way? That a dark, twisted version of a children's character didn't always have to be so lame and short-sighted? What if I told you that there's 2 incredible examples of this sort of thing being done tastefully with another famous children's character? One of which came out as recently as September of 2023. So let me introduce you to the dark and twisted retellings of Pinocchio. Pinocchio and Winnie the Pooh actually have a lot of things in common. Both of the characters originate from a novel. Both of these novels are very old. Both of the characters have Disney movies associated with them, with the Disney version of the character still being copyrighted by Disney. And both of them have a game and a movie that act as a dark and gritty reimagining of the original character. Pinocchio has a Guillermo del Toro movie that has received glowing critical acclaim. It's a retelling of the original story, but with a more melancholic art style that only the creator of Pan's Labyrinth could possibly pull off. And Pinocchio also has a game called Lies of P, which actually released only a month and a half ago in September. Lies of P isn't a retelling of the original story, but is instead using the original characters to tell a brand new story. And this game is just phenomenal. If you're a fan of Souls-likes, especially Bloodborne, then you will love this game, and I couldn't recommend it more. But what makes these dark retellings so good when these dark retellings are so bad? It would be easy to just chalk this up to the quality of the production or the skill of the directors and developers, but it's actually a lot less complicated than that. It's all about respect. The people who made this Winnie the Pooh game or this Winnie the Pooh movie don't give a fuck about Winnie the Pooh. Not the source material, not the history of the character, not even the character itself. They have no respect for the character or its source material. Blood and Honey was officially announced in May of 2022, just 4 short months after the character became public domain. But filming had begun a month before its official announcement in April of the same year, meaning they had an entire screenplay written and shipped between January and April of 2022. Now, it is possible that this script was being written before January. You know, maybe the writers were paying close attention to which copyrights were about to become public domain. Perhaps this is true, but I could find no mention of this in researching the video, and to be honest, with how the movie turned out, I highly doubt that. The entire movie was filmed in just 10 days, with a budget of under $100,000 US. 100K might sound like a lot, but for a movie budget, this is insanely low. The movie officially released in January 2023, which means it probably took them less than a year to make the entire movie on a shoestring budget. And the result was a half-assed slasher movie that was panned by audiences and critics alike. The only reason this movie got made is because Winnie the Pooh recently became public domain. The only reason the movie is themed around Winnie the Pooh is because it's free marketing for an insanely low-budget movie. And their plan clearly worked. The buzz that evil, messed up Winnie the Pooh Lamau made on the internet resulted in this movie grossing over $5 million US at the box office, meaning they earned more than 50 times the amount they spent on the movie, all because of the usage of a beloved IP that had just recently become public domain. The usage of Winnie the Pooh as the main character is cynical to say the least, and a similar thing can be said about the game Winnie's Hole, although this one is a lot less egregious in my opinion. The game isn't actually out yet, so it is hard to say how much respect it shows for the source material, but if I had to guess from all the promotional material, it's probably not a lot. The game was initially created as a part of a game jam in just a week, but they thought the concept of a twisted Winnie the Pooh was funny enough to keep developing. The game itself might be fun when it releases, but having Winnie the Pooh's corpse figuratively and literally draped over the game is only really done for marketing purposes. Winnie the Pooh is a famous character, so zombified carcass of Winnie the Pooh on the front cover of your game is a great way to generate clicks on the internet. Neither of these pieces of media show respect for their source material, but when we take a look back at the Pinocchio stuff, it's a whole different story. Let's take a look at the movie. The director of this film, Guillermo del Toro, has gone on record calling this movie a passion project. It released in 2022, but he started working on it all the way back in 2008, and he's wanted to make a Pinocchio movie ever since he was a little kid. He even went on record to say this: "No art form has influenced my life and my work more than animation, and no single character in history has had as deep of a personal connection to me as Pinocchio. I've wanted to make this movie for as long as I can remember." He saw the Disney movie as a child and completely fell in love with the character, and as a result, his love for the source material can be clearly seen in the movie. It's a retelling of the story that takes liberties here and there, but it's all done out of respect for both the original novel from 1883 and the Disney movie from 1940. This movie's from 1940, by the way. Did you know that? Because I didn't know that until researching this video. And the Pinocchio game, called Lies of P, shows that same level of respect for its source material. Instead of a retelling, Lies of P tells a completely different story with the same characters from the original novel. You play as Pinocchio, a puppet whose ego has awakened, so now he's more than just a puppet. There's a whole technologically advanced society where these puppets are used as a workforce to keep the society running. But one day, all of the puppets turned on the human race seemingly at random, slaughtering everyone they came across. The puppets from the original story are reimagined into these automatons that roam around killing indiscriminately. Yet this dark twist on the characters and the world is done tastefully. It's not done for shock factor, it's done to tell an interesting story. The whole lying thing from the original movie has been flipped on its head in Lies of P. Rather than lying, making Pinocchio's nose grow longer, instead lying is a uniquely human trait. Puppets can't lie, but you can, because despite originally being a puppet, Pinocchio's a real boy now, and a ton of the characters show up in reimagined forms, with Geppetto your creator, or Jiminy Cricket inside your lantern acting as a guide. There's even some more niche references to characters, like the cat that pretends to be blind and the fox that pretends to be lame. And this world is such an excellent backdrop to a difficult Souls-like game, and the game is doing quite well for itself because of it, already having sold 1 million copies in only just a month of being released. This game is fantastic, but it's quite easy to see a world where the same premise could have very easily been let down. It only works because the developers had a great deal of respect for the source material that they were using to create the world their game takes place in. Without that respect, the entire concept just falls apart, becoming nothing but a shallow cash grab that tarnishes the original character. This is the real reason that these edgy Winnie the Pooh things seem so unbelievably lame to us. It's not necessarily an inherently bad idea. It's not that such a concept couldn't possibly work, but instead because the versions of it we've received are shallow and don't take the idea seriously enough to make it work. And to be fair, Pinocchio has been public domain for a whole lot longer than Winnie the Pooh has, so it's had more time to get well thought out versions of the character released into media. So maybe one day in the future we'll get a dark horror Winnie the Pooh that actually does the character justice. I can't say I have much faith, but my fingers are crossed nonetheless. Thanks for watching.